I'm with my good friend Thomas Hampson. Tom's a private investigator. He's investigates some of the most awful things, undercover for child porn, child sex trafficking, so many other things. Tom, it's good to be with you. I want to ask you something about a recent article you wrote. What did you call it? It's really is a bill from I think Representative Kelly Cassidy from Illinois.
Right.
But what did you call that article, Tom?
Cassidy's trans insanity.
Okay, Cassidy's trans insanity, and I'll make sure I put I'll put your Substack address so people can go find this article. But you can't make this kind of stuff up. Explain that a little bit to people, and then I want to make some comments on this insanity that's going on. And the other thing, Tom, that's just bugging me, I might as well just throw it right out at you so you could be thinking of it while you're talking. Is the amount of money that Doge and other people are coming up with to waste in this government. It's enough to
Right.
make you sick. And finally, I'll just say this: the real war that we're fighting is the war among the deep state. It's
Right.
amazing, amazing, amazing. It's Cold War 2.0, and I think it is probably more dangerous than anything else we've faced.
Well, I wrote that article on Cassidy because she had
And
last
she
week.
and go back and
Okay.
explain who she is to people too,
Okay.
Tom.
It's Kelly Cassidy, and she's a state representative. She's actually
For what state?
for Illinois.
All
She's
right,
for
because
Illinois,
this
and
goes all over the
that's
country, Thomas.
that's right. I forget Illinois isn't the world.
No, it's the belly of the
Thank
beast,
God.
my friend. Yeah.
you know.
In fact, here I saw I saw a sign like somebody had put up, and it was like a meme sign, right? And it said, basically, what happened to your life? It says, "Welcome to Illinois," right? So you're driving into Illinois, and it
Yeah.
said, "What happened? What bad choices did you make in your life that are bringing you into this state?" And
Yeah,
that's the way I
man.
feel, right? We're fighting
It
every
is.
single thing in here. The most corrupt, talk about corruption, and the most, we can't wait to abort babies here, right? We're bringing them in from all over the
Terrible.
place, twisting and distorting our education system with all this stuff. But hey, let's get back to this.
Well, we have a terribly corrupt governor too. I mean,
It's
the
amazing.
whole thing. They got their money with the partnering with the mob, so that figures. Anyway,
Yeah, let's talk about this.
yeah, Kelly
Let's talk about this
Kelly
article.
Cassidy is a Democrat state representative for Illinois, and she's from Chicago. She's a lesbian who's married to Newt Gingrich's half sister, Candace Gingrich, and so she's a very progressive legislator. And last week she got on the floor of the House and it gave a 6-minute tirade against Republican legislators who had introduced about 20 bills involving the trans issue. And she said she was going to, it'd be over her dead body that any of those bills ever pass. So that's what prompted me to write the letter because write the article, and there's a link to her tirade on the floor in there too. So,
Yeah, so basically, those bills were trying to protect children
right,
from puberty blockers, from cross-sex hormones, from actual
right,
body mutilation. And it always gets back to me from a faith-based standpoint is that we're always trying to attack the human person, and if we can't destroy those children coming out of the before they get out of the womb, Tom, we're going to render them sterile. We're going to basically put them on a path to self-destruction in so many ways. It's really sad. And when I say this, it's coming back from the detransitioners
right.
that are looking back at their bodies, young people with their breasts removed, and even worse than that, when you look at how they're trying to reshape, penises and women's parts. It's just it's really disgusting
Well,
stuff.
and she's all in favor of these procedures. She's totally in favor of them, and yet one of the things I point out in the article is that the way she railed against the Republicans who are trying to outlaw a lot of these procedures is indicates to me that she would be in favor of genital mutilation for that the Muslim ban, there was a ban on Muslims doing these what do you call them,
It's like
female circumcision is what it was
yeah.
called, but it's really
Very
genital.
painful for
Yeah,
women, and why a man even, they say it so that your wife doesn't fool around, I guess, on you.
right. Well,
But
the theological reason for it is so that they won't be tempted to engage in sin. That's the reason for it.
yeah, because
And
it's
so,
painful, right? I
right,
mean, it's painful but I mean, as a husband, you would think, okay, so now I'm going to approach my wife, right, to come into the most intimate thing you can do with another
right.
person, right, which is that marital embrace, and this is going to hurt her physically, and
Well,
so she,
it doesn't necessarily hurt her while she's engaging it. She doesn't receive any pleasure from it because the pleasure center, the clitoris, is removed or scarred so badly that they don't get any pleasure from it.
oh my God, I mean, what, and again, so this is a man, this gets back to John Paul II's work. He would say the opposite of
Right,
love is not hate, it's lust, it's selfishness.
right.
And this is the epitome of that a man will damage his own wife so that she doesn't get pleasure, she doesn't get involved, but yet he is going to use her as an object, basically,
Right.
and for his own, I mean, we become so depraved, Tom, in this thing,
But
and get, uh-huh.
the reality is though that this is the thing that is so tragic about transgender surgeries is basically the same thing happens to both the men that have the surgery and the women that have the surgery,
Yeah.
is while they're fashioning um, their body to appear to have these, like a woman to have a male appendage or a man to have a vagina. It appears that way, although not very well. It also damages the ability of them for them to experience pleasure in the act of sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is the thing. So it basically has the same outcome in it as this female circumcision, with the addition that they also are sterile. Now, the women who are circumcised are not sterile. They can
Right.
still have
Right.
babies. They can still breastfeed, but not so with these transgender surgeries. So the thing that I brought out in the article is, does that mean that she's going to rescind the law for female genital mutilation? I mean, it seems like her position, if she's in favor of these trans surgeries, these trans, the idea of somebody can be trans, that she would be opposed to um, the
Banning,
earlier
basically.
bill.
Yeah. Yeah. But now she didn't really state that, though, right? That she
No,
was
she didn't.
supposed.
But
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
logically. But most of these progressives don't think logically anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, how
So,
can you think logically when you believe that you can turn a man into a woman or vice versa?
right. This is the epitome of insanity. This is something that's impossible, right? A man not cannot
Right.
become a woman. So I think, the reason I'm kind of berating this point is this is the point we've reached, with this insanity, and that we actually can take a child, a child, an innocent, most vulnerable child, and actually direct them on this path. I think the reason I want is for our listeners, for people to wake up. You and I do a presentation called Stolen Innocence, where we show not only what they do with these trans movements like this, but what they're doing in the school with pornography and et cetera, et cetera. It's really to take away the purity, the innocence of these children and put them again on a path where they actually rob them of their innocence. They obliterate their moral imaginations. And, at the end of the day, we see this happening in our culture where so many of these young people, and we meet them with the John Paul II Renewal Center. So this is not just some side issue for me. I get so
Right.
mad, Tom, because when I'm meeting these young people, they are very confused, and anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts come up. And so, and this is on purpose. This is what really, when a woman
Right.
like this Kelly Cassidy stands up and pushes, for these types of issues and against any laws protecting children, what do you think about that, Tom? I mean, there's something's really gone wrong with that person's heart, with their moral compass. What kind of people do this? I don't know this lady. Are they naive, Tom? Are they just ideologues? Are they
I
there for
think it's
money or
I
what? I
think
mean,
it's
what
the
is this
I
thing?
think they're ideologues, because I had known this guy who was a very progressive. This is years ago, because progressivism didn't just start a few years ago. But
No,
when I was
no.
when I was with the state, I had a state rep uh, tell me I testified, and he objected to my testimony. And I said, um, well, sir, all I'm testifying to are the facts. And he says, there are facts and there are principles. I believe in principles. And if the facts contradict with the principles, then you ignore the facts.
Mm.
And I think that's an ingrained way of thinking that infects the entire progressive movement. That they don't
Mm.
care about the facts. There's a principle, and they're going to move in that direction. That the principle guides them, regardless of what the facts say, because the facts that are don't align with the principle, they must be wrong.
Yeah. Well, what I find over and over again is that this really does come down to God. If you don't have a faith,
Right.
if you don't really believe that you're a child of God, and many people don't, and you think, okay, well, it doesn't make any difference. Pope Benedict XVI said that at first, when you take God out of your life and out of a country, everything seems like it goes along like it did before. You don't notice anything. And then it doesn't. And then it doesn't. It takes a
Right.
little while. So when we first took God out of the public square and out of our schools and out of our own hearts in so many instances, we think, well, everything's going okay, right? But it didn't take all that long if you really think about it. And here we are today, transing, kids, putting kids again on this path. And it gets down to this core thing right from Genesis chapter 1. God said, let's make man in our image, in the divine image, he said. And he created them male and female. God blessed them, saying, be fertile, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. So again, the image of God in this created world is man and woman created what? So that the two become one, become three, right? With a child.
Right.
So fertility, the first commandment, Tom, is what? Be fertile and multiply. Have
Right.
have sexual intercourse with your wife, right? Get married, have kids. And this is the first commandment. And then go and till and keep the garden, right? This earth is given to you. All of this is given to you. So what happens? This comes down to the very basic from Genesis chapter 1. We go in and we try to destroy the union of a man and woman, right? Redefine marriage. And the second thing is
Right.
to kill the child that comes out of this thing and render them sterile. This is the baseline, Tom. I think it's come all the way down to this point where we're attacking the very base of who we are as human beings. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, um, what I see and what Cassidy's doing, it follows right along with that. Because here's the other thing I wrote in the article is that um, uh, the person primarily responsible for um, promoting this whole trans ideology was John Money,
Mm,
and he promoted it using primarily an experiment that he was doing with the Reimer twins, and he presented this experiment as being just extraordinarily successful. That and the idea was that his idea was that your internal self determined your sexuality. And so that if you raised a boy as a girl, he would be a girl in reality in every way possible, and including if they did surgery on him, he would think and act and perform just like any other woman. He might not be able to give birth, but you still provide them with the same type of female experience that any biological woman would have. Well, he presented this as being the reality that you could be whatever you thought you were. And that idea caught on during the time of Money's experiments. Well, it turned out that the whole tale of his successful experiment was absolutely a fraud, that it was a false, that it was the experiment was an utter disaster. Both of the boys were dead, died. One of them committed suicide. The other one died of an overdose. And I think it probably was an overdose by suicide. So it was an utter disaster. The whole thing was an utter disaster, and he knew it. But by the time it was discovered that this was a fraud and a disaster, all these progressives have said, wow, look, we can, if we think it, we can be it. you know,
so this gets back so to your earlier.
This has been infected the entire culture.
And it was all based on a lie. This gets back to what when you were in the courtroom, where principle, takes a step above facts, right?
Right. Yes.
And and this is exactly what you were talking about. So here we are. The facts are the opposite, but this, ideologue, and this ideology is pushed. So
right.
again,
instead of going along with what God created.
Tom, this gets back to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
And the first deadly sin is pride. John Money is working for Johns Hopkins, right?
Right.
He's heading up this gender insanity. And at the end of the day, he sits back. This is a well-educated man, sits back and says, culturally, this is all cultural. Male and female is cultural. We can change it if we want to. If we raise a kid, we put dresses on him, we start to give a little kid dolls, a little boy dolls, he will become a girl, and then we can shape his body into it. This is, again, I'm using this word epitome of it because this is what's stuck in my brain right now.
Yeah.
The epitome of pride. I can be like God is Genesis 3,
exactly.
Right? I can be like God.
He is God. I am God.
And this is exactly what this Cassidy reminds me of. We can be like God. We can trans these kids. We can do that. So again, if you think about it, I mean, anybody with any common sense. Right. This is, and I want to, before we get off the air today, I want to talk about Trump and common sense, because thank goodness it's coming back. But anybody with common sense would sit back and go, "That's nonsense. You could have stuck a dress on me as a little boy, and there's no way I'm going to become a girl." I mean, in Scotland, you put a dress on a young guy and he becomes a warrior I mean, that's what they wear, right? I mean, go watch William Wallace and Braveheart, for Pete's sakes. It doesn't make William Wallace, in fact, I got his sword right behind me here.
Yeah.
It made him a warrior. So here's the point before we move on, Tom, is that when you take God out, your reason becomes very unreasonable. Your conscience that should be looking right, and your free will should be like a motor to the good. I'm going to choose the good. Right. It becomes very darkened, and we no longer. Jesus says this over and over again. You don't see the light, and you'll stay in darkness. And those are just words on a page sometimes to some people, until you start to investigate what's going on here today, Tom. And there's nothing that says insanity to me like trying to tell me that a boy can become a girl, and we're going to cut off their private parts and mutilate their very bodies as little kids. You know how many times I would have been confused as a little kid? Hey, Jack, you can be Superman. Okay, I'm a Superman. Operate on me, right? And I'm a little kid. The parent, what does the parent say? Okay, Jack, come to dinner now. Put away the cape and get off the roof. You're not jumping off the roof again. You know
But
what
see,
happened
I
last
did
time?
jump off the roof.
Did you break anything?
No,
No.
I
Unbelievable.
realized
Okay.
I couldn't fly even though I had the cape. But
No,
the,
no.
the other thing that's important about Cassidy's tirade on the House um, was she in part was reacting to Trump's executive order about there's only male and female, and if anybody that teaches anything different, they're going to lose their federal money, basically. Well, she was reacting in some part to that. So um, just because he made that executive order doesn't mean the fight is over. We
Oh
have
no,
to.
not
We're
even
gonna.
close.
It's only the beginning because this
Oh
is
yeah.
just the pushback against that order is started in extreme earnest. Because, like I said, she said in her talk on the floor that it would be over her dead body that any of these anti-trans bills would ever pass in Illinois.
No, they want to destroy children and
Right.
destroy. Look at she's on the side of evil, and whether she knows it or not, that's why I said in the beginning is she's just naive to this stuff. But here's another well-educated woman. She's a state representative. I mean, these people aren't dummies, right?
No.
And so they really believe this stuff somehow, you can't make it up. So let me show you some. As we're getting out of here, some good news here. I whatever you think of Donald Trump, his old tweets and stuff. I like his new tweets, and it's amazing. So he writes he sends this out on Truth Social, I think it was. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. Because these are all the pardons that he gave,
Right.
1,500 or something or more, Tom,
Yeah.
because of the fact they were done by autopin. In other words, Joe Biden, he says, did not sign the. So, anyways, the point of this being, he said it was signed by autopin, and Joe Biden probably didn't know anything about him, and probably the people who actually were on the unselect committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me, he says, and many other innocent people should fully, and here's the point, should fully understand that they're subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their own behalf, without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. And you gotta love this. You gotta love this, Tom. Now, you made the point right before we came on the air that this is probably not legal for him to do this. It has to go through the
Yeah.
court
I don't
system.
think one president can withdraw the pardons of another.
But what they say in here, the investigations are the key phrase in here, buried in the middle, which is Joe Biden's pardons are subject to investigation at the highest level.
Right. Yeah.
They have to.
Anybody they can still be brought in for investigation, and because they've been pardoned, they can't take the Fifth Amendment,
Mm,
and so of course they can always forget, like
mm,
Comey did and everybody else.
yeah,
I forgot 180 times. Um,
amazing,
but
amazing.
it's just so pathetic. Um, but the issue with the Biden pardons is that these pardons were um, signed by autopin, and so is that a real pardon? Some of the actions that he took that were signed by autopin were done while he was on vacation in the Virgin Islands, and yet they were signed in Washington, D.C. by autopen. And there's a question as to whether or not he even knows it. I mean, I wonder whether he not even knows where he is half the time,
Yeah,
based on his performance. We've seen him just kind of wandering around the stage in his performance in his debate last summer when they said, hey, you got to go, and replace him with Kamala. I think the people that were part of his administration that failed to remove him by the 25th Amendment were derelict in their duty, because he clearly was not in any sound mind to be able to run the country.
Right. And here's where we were, right? We almost had Kamala Harris there. The other thing,
Yeah, I don't know.
so let's look at, we got to applaud him. He's getting into what we're kind of thinking is phase 2.0 on here. So Doge goes in, they start to uncover all of the fraud and waste, which
It's
should make
terrible.
the average person is sick to their stomach when you think about how hard everybody works to pay their taxes, right? And and it's amazing. How many people that I know that if they didn't have to pay so much in taxes, real estate taxes, state taxes, retail taxes, Fed taxes, if they didn't have to pay all these taxes, a mom and a dad wouldn't have to both go to work. Tom, people tell me all the time, two of us have to work today because blah blah blah. I said it's because of
Right,
your taxes. It's amazing.
right.
Well, at one point, everybody just did it, put their head down and did it. But now you're starting to realize the amount of waste going on. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the teachers union, you know what she makes, Tom? Any
I
idea?
imagine at least 750,000 a year.
Yeah, over 600, around $600,000. But that's without her perks
Yeah,
and her
right,
benefits and all the other stuff, right? And so, of course, they don't want to, this, Department of Education eliminated, which is a total waste. Talk about a total waste of money, right? So
right.
he's going after that. He's going after the universities. The universities are amazing amount of money. We just know that he's holding back $400 million from Columbia University, and you go, wait, $400 million to one university. You
Well, yeah,
can't
but
make.
their endowment, they probably got
Yeah,
$20 billion
they have
already in
plenty
their
of money. So
endowment.
why are we paying, right? This
Right.
shows you, Tom. We are paying all of this money in, and they have a huge endowment, as does Harvard and all these other colleges, and so here we are doing this. Um, we're even going after, and Tom, we know this is the hoax, this climate hoax that's been going on for so long
Uh,
with John Kerry and all of these, the Bill Gates of the world. And again, it's just another scam to extort money. $27 billion to three different agencies to research climate change, to try to get our CO2 levels and stuff down. $27 billion. And what? Tell me about the one that went to Stacey Abrams.
well,
That
she
$2
got
billion
two
dollars.
billion dollars, and this is, but this is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, she started off with the power forward communities, or whatever it is. She started that with $100. It didn't have anything more than $100 in its account for months before they got this $2 billion um, grant from the government to basically give away free um, energy efficient refrigerators to who, I don't know. I don't know what the requirements were for somebody to be able to get a free three
Wait,
thousand
is
dollar
that is
refrigerator.
that real? I mean, is that what she was supposed to do? Hand
Yeah,
out
which yeah,
free
and I guess
refrigerators?
she did. I guess she has been handing out these refrigerators to people, but by what, on what?
$3 billion or $2 billion worth of
Right. Can you
refrigerators.
imagine? Look, just think of what you and I could do with $2 billion for just to advance this issue of protecting children. These groups, these nonprofit organizations, are nothing but slush funds to pay the salary of those who are in favor with the current people in power.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
she I don't know how much money she made, but all these political cronies that they get these big salaries, and it's happening in the churches too. I wrote that article about the missing kids, that most of the money was going to religious organizations to move these kids from the interior, or from the border into the interior, and three-quarters of them are missing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm Catholic, and I rallied with I'm on an advisory committee, and I rallied against last year, over a year ago, against Catholic Relief Services getting any more money. from any of us. It's amazing. So they're moving these kids through. You and I covered this in the past, but
Right.
moving these kids through and not even knowing where they are today.
Right.
And this is Catholic Church. This is just people just getting money, like you said, to enrich themselves at
Well,
the
and
end.
whose refrigerators are they? What
Yeah,
political crony is it that is producing the refrigerators that may be worth $1,000 that they're selling for $3,000 to the government?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
this is just so much. The corruption is unbelievable.
yeah.
I knew, and I've always known, because the more money government gets, the more corruption there'll be. I've always known that as a principle. I've always seen it. I've investigated government corruption. I knew that there was a massive amount of corruption in the federal government, but what Doge has uncovered is beyond anything I ever imagined.
It's at
It's
every
just
level. Yeah, and
at every level in every organization. There are networks on networks on networks of these
yeah,
corrupt nonprofit organizations. I saw a meme the other day that said, um, if your NGO has trouble surviving when it loses its government money, you're not an NGO.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know that, and
yeah.
that's so true. It's
It is.
world relief.
And Tom, that's not, we've got state government, we've got the county government, we've got the local governments, and everybody is taking their piece,
Right.
and if they
World
say anything about it, they're ostracized. So
Right. Well, and they'll lose the money if they say anything. If they don't do exactly what they want, it's they'll lose their money. So you figure here, I looked at World Relief the other day, and it's got 80% World Relief. It's a organization created by the National Association of Evangelicals. Okay, so it's a religious organization. 80% of their operating money, comes from the federal government.
unbelievable.
80%. Well, they're not a religious
No.
organization. They're an organization of evangelicals. They are a government agency.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, anyways, when you look at this whole thing, it gets back down to our founding fathers again.
Right.
And I think this is an important conversation because I'm meeting more and more young men. I've mentioned this to you before. These Generation Z, kind of the middle of the pack, they're from an age group. They go from, 14, 15 up to say 27, 28. But the middle 19, 20, 21, 22, those that can vote, have came out for Trump, Tom. They saw this is going on. They were never taught, civics in school. They're learning on their own that a small government is exactly what we founded in the beginning. This
Right.
behemoth that we have today, our founding fathers are rolling in their graves right now, and when it comes down to this, and this is where we're at right now, and this is what Trump is doing. Let me just read. This is from the U.S. Declaration of Independence. July 4th, 1776, right? We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights because they knew if you take God out, Tom, whether you believe in God or not, but the concept of God, there's nothing here. We get back to our principles and facts type of a conversation, right? You decide whatever you want at the end. But, anyways, endowed by their creator with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, from us. They have
Right.
totally extorted. You go talk to the IRS about how they're extorting your money, Tom, and you'll see
Right.
very quickly that they're not governing for you.
Well, it's ridiculous. Can you? What about? Just think about Davy Crockett out in the, you know,
I'm gonna find a
born in the
cabin and go
wild
join.
frontier.
Yeah,
Can you
I'm.
imagine
I'm.
him?
Is there a
Like,
place I can go like that?
I can't imagine the regulations in the government. Everything we do is micromanaged by some government agency. You can't do anything
No.
without it.
And
Nothing.
Tom, think about COVID that we just got out
Right.
of. COVID was exactly this about micromanaging every move you make, when
Right.
you can come out of the house, how you wear a mask, how far you can distance yourself, what you can eat. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? We were
Pritzker
almost
had
there.
the
We
Pritzker
were.
had the
We.
state police patrolling Lake Michigan to make sure nobody had more than 4 people in the boat
Out on the water.
out on the
You know,
water.
they were arresting people in
Yes.
Hawaii for
Yeah.
surfing. For surfing.
It is just insane.
Unbelievable.
I can't even understand how people would put up with it. My church wouldn't let anybody go to church.
No. No,
You know,
no.
like
Our Pope closed down mass for the first time in history of the world. You know. So here,
I think, geez,
let me kind of end with this, Tom, and get your last comment on this. So here's where we're at, and so we have to make this thing smaller. And it says this from where I just got done finished reading that we get powers of the from the governed, right? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And so here it is. Read your
well, and that's
Declaration
what
of
I think
Independence.
President Trump is trying to do.
Exactly right. So when people push back, Tom, I'm gonna just tell them go read the first couple paragraphs. This is the very first couple
Right.
paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence.
I mean, he's even come out said he wants to get rid of the income tax.
Right. Well, we didn't have an income tax in
I
the
know he
beginning.
wants to get rid of it, and people are saying, "Oh, this is shocking that he wants to get rid of the income tax." What do you? People are like they become cattle.
They have been not, and everybody has got their hands out. Everybody's got a piece of this thing. It's so big. We're talking about the National Department of Education.
Right.
It's a totally worthless institution, Tom.
It
It
is.
started by Carter to reward the unions, right? The teachers'
Yep.
unions and et
That's
cetera,
right.
et cetera. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think 80%, 70 or 80% of the money that goes in there, are paying the overhead costs and stuff.
I wouldn't be
It,
surprised. Well, look,
it,
they were supposed to help
don't quote
improve
me again on that.
education in the public schools, and it's done nothing but get worse. It is an agency that has completely failed in its mission.
Yeah.
Completely failed in its mission.
So here you have Randy Weingarten again complaining now about these cuts coming down,
Right.
talking about how students are going to be affected. Now, this isn't a time. This isn't a time. She's making $600,000+. This isn't a time where the costs are skyrocketing for education, almost
Right.
doubled in the last 10 years. The mental illness of our students is skyrocketing, anxiety, depression, suicide, etc. And falling like a rock is what, Tom?
The
Math,
grades.
reading,
Right.
anything to do with grades. And I would be embarrassed. Talk about shame. You think she'd
Hey,
be too ashamed to complain?
administrators have gone up like this. The number of teachers has gone up like this. The number of students has gone like this.
Because people are getting out. In Chicago, anybody that could get out of the public school system has got out of the public school system.
I
I mean, and those poor kids that are left in there, right, are
Yeah, well,
getting their
now they're trying to
faces ripped
regulate
off.
homeschools.
They're going after homeschools. So
Right.
I'm going to reach out to some homeschool people that have some organizations here in the Chicago and get them on the show, Tom. And I'll let you know. Jump on with me. I just reached
Yeah.
out to somebody this morning. Hey, brother, good to be with you. Again, I think that the moral of this, we got to take down the size of this government. It was never supposed to be this big. And
No.
for all the socialists and neo-Marxists out there, you're on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of your own eternal life. Honest to goodness, taking away all the freedoms that we work for, all those extorting money from all of these hardworking people. It riles me up. Maybe it's good to get riled up, huh?
That's right.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again soon. Bye bye.
Yeah.